Star Trek: Strange New Worlds is heading into its final 2 seasons, and the last 16 episodes must deliver something that Star Trek, the original series, ever did. Although the recently ended Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3 was divisive, Seasons 4 and 5 are on their way to Paramount+. Surprisingly and pleasingly, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds boasts an abundance of Kirks. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds series premiere ended with the surprise introduction of Lieutenant Sam Kirk, Dan Jano, a friend of Captain Christopher Pike, Anson Mount, who is a xenobiologist on the USS Enterprise. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 1's finale introduced Lieutenant James T. Kirk, Paul Wesley, although he was initially just a file on Pike's screen. Paul Wesley played 2 alternate reality versions of Jim Kirk before Star Trek's prime timeline. Lieutenant James T. Kirk beamed aboard the Starship Enterprise. Sam and Jim Kirk have only had a couple of interactions in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Seasons 2 and 3, and even more of them referencing each other to other characters. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds has to give us the ultimate Kirk brothers story. A Kirk brothers team-up must happen in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds' final seasons. Jim and Sam Kirk toasting in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Seasons 4 and 5 only have a combined 16 episodes left, and one of them has to include Lieutenant Commander James T. Kirk and Lieutenant Sam Kirk finally teaming up and working together. Sam's dynamic with his younger brother has revolved around jealousy. Jim is the favorite star of the 2 brothers, who is more closely following in their father, Lieutenant George Kirk's, Starfleet footsteps. When he was promoted to first officer of the USS Farragut, James broke George's record as Starfleet's youngest number 1. Sam does have bragging rights of his own, however. The mustachioed Kirk secured a coveted spot as a xenoanthropologist aboard the USS Enterprise. Sam's one big thing he can lord over his little brother, Jim, is that he's serving aboard the flagship of the United Federation of Planets. The Kirks drank together like brothers should. Sam and Jim shared the screen in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 6, Lost in Translation, and that ended in hard feelings. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Season 3's finale, New Life and New Civilizations, saw Sam offer Jim a glass of whiskey as an olive branch, and the Kirks drank together like brothers should. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds' final 2 seasons must team Sam and Jim Kirk together on a mission, so we can finally see the Kirk brothers work together for the first time since Sam was introduced in Star Trek, the original series 58 years ago. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds also established that Lieutenant Spock, Ethan Peck, dislikes Lieutenant Sam Kirk. Perhaps Sam is temporarily transferred to the USS Farragut and placed under his younger brother's command. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds can finally tell the story of why Sam chooses to leave the USS Enterprise when Captain James T. Kirk takes over rather than serve with him. Why Sam and James T. Kirk could never team up in Star Trek, the original seasons. Sam Kirk dead in Star Trek. George Samuel Kirk appeared only once in Star Trek, the original series, and he was already dead. Before Star Trek: Strange New Worlds reintroduced him, Sam was played by William Shatner, wearing a mustache, in Star Trek, the original series Season 1's final episode, Operation Annihilate. Since Sam Kirk was essentially a cameo in Star Trek, the original series, William Shatner was cast to play his own recently deceased older brother. There was never an opportunity in 1960s Star Trek to develop Sam Kirk outside of what Operation Annihilate revealed about him, much less team up Jim and Sam Kirk. Sam Kirk was an afterthought for 55 years and was not mentioned outside of Star Trek novels and ancillary materials before he resurfaced aboard the Starship Enterprise in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds series premiere. Strange New Worlds can also solve another Kirk family mystery. Kirk brothers hug in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Seasons 4 and 5 must not only take advantage of this golden opportunity to team up Sam and Jim Kirk, but the prequel saga could also answer even more questions about the Kirk family. James and Sam's father, Lieutenant George Kirk, has not appeared in Star Trek's TV series canon. George Kirk was played by Chris Hemsworth, and his wife, Winona Kirk, was portrayed by Jennifer Morrison, in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, 2009. Interestingly, George and Winona Kirk in Star Trek, 2009, technically count as taking place in Star Trek's Prime Universe canon, since they existed when Nero, Eric Bana, time-traveled from 2387 aboard the Narada, and the Romulans destroying the USS Kelvin is what created the alternate Kelvin timeline.